Adrian Lindbergh was a millionaire whose life collapsed in a single night. He lost his friends, his wife, his company, and ended up stranded on a deserted island in the middle of the Atlantic. For 4 years, he lived in complete isolation, surviving on coconuts and fish, talking to the shadows of his past, and fighting every single day just to stay alive. But that's only half the story. Behind the scenes of this drama lies something even darker: the betrayal of the people closest to him. A betrayal that broke him just as deeply as the ocean ever could. What was harder to endure, the storms and hunger, or the knife in the back from those he trusted most? Today, you'll discover the truth about the fall and the incredible rebirth of Adrian Lindbergh, a man many call the modern-day Robinson Crusoe. It's 1982. Stockholm is wrapped in January snow when the Lindbergh family welcomes their third child, Adrian. His father, Gustav, owns the largest private bank in Scandinavia. His mother, Christina, spends millions on charity and is considered one of the most influential women in Sweden. In this house, money was never the problem. The problem was Adrian himself. While the older children, Eric and Astrid, happily studied finance and prepared to inherit the family empire, the youngest son spent hours in the mansion's basement. There, he pulled apart old IBM computers, trying to understand how they worked. His parents made no effort to hide their disappointment. Gustav would tell guests openly that Adrian was the shame of the family. A boy who could have been running billions was wasting his time tinkering with machines like an ordinary mechanic. But Adrian didn't give up. At 13, he created his first program, a simple game that became a hit among his classmates. He wasn't interested in money. What fascinated him was the act of creating, the chance to build something new out of nothing. What his family bought with money, Adrian built with his own hands. By the time Adrian finishes school, the gap between him and his parents has become impossible to bridge. His father offers him a position at the bank. His mother sets up meetings with the daughters of powerful families. But Adrian makes a choice that shocks them all. He turns down his inheritance and leaves for America to study programming. 3 years at Stanford completely change his life. Here, he's not the son of banker Lindbergh. He's just Adrian, the guy who can write code for any problem. It's here he meets Mark Jansen, a Dane who shares his passion for technology. They don't just become best friends, they become partners in a dream. 2003. Adrian and Mark return to Europe with a revolutionary idea. They want to create a platform that brings all of a person's social connections into one place, a space where people can talk, share photos, find friends, even shop. Sounds familiar? But this was 2 years before Facebook and 3 years before Twitter. Investors line up. The young Swedes raise $15 million to build their project. For the first time, Adrian feels like he's found his place in the world. But fate has a meeting in store that will change everything. At a presentation for new investors, he meets Clara Nielsen. She's a journalist at Scandinavia's biggest financial magazine. Clara covers the story of their startup and is struck not only by the idea, but by Adrian himself, a tall, modest programmer who talks about the future as if he's already been there. Their romance moves fast. Within 6 months, they move in together. Clara becomes the company's unofficial PR director. She knows all the right people in the media and helps Adrian build the image of a rising entrepreneur. For the first time in his life, he feels understood and accepted. The office buzzes like a hive. 50 of Europe's best programmers are building the platform. Mark runs the technical side. Adrian handles strategy. And in the glass-walled corner, Clara negotiates with journalists. Everything is going according to plan. But into these walls of happiness seeps the poison that will destroy everything. A new programmer joins the team, Thomas Bergman, talented, ambitious, and unbelievably charismatic. Adrian welcomes him like a brother. Mark is impressed too. And Clara? Clara starts staying late at the office, supposedly working on new material. Adrian suspects nothing. He believes in his team, in the project, in love itself. But 2008 becomes a black hole that swallows not only his dreams, but his faith in people. September. The company collapses like a house of cards. The global financial crisis hits with a wave of bankruptcies. Investors panic and demand their money back. In just 1 week, Adrian's company loses 80% of its funding. Imagine that, 5 years of work evaporating in 7 days. But that's only the beginning of the nightmare. Adrian sells his apartment, his car, even his father's expensive watch to keep the team alive. He takes out personal loans, betting everything on future earnings. Mark supports his decisions. They work 18-hour days, desperately searching for new investors. And Clara? Clara suddenly grows distant and cold. She stops coming to the office. She doesn't answer calls. Adrian thinks she's just struggling through the crisis like he is. He has no idea that she's been living it with someone else for a long time. December 2008. Adrian sits alone in an empty office. The team is gone. The equipment has been seized by bailiffs. The debts have climbed to $3 million. And then the phone rings. It's Mark. His best friend's voice trembles with nerves. "Adrian, I need to tell you something." What Adrian hears next shatters his world completely. Mark and Clara have been secretly seeing each other for 6 months, and they're planning to get married. But that's not all. Even before that, Clara had been cheating with Thomas Bergman. Mark knew, but stayed silent for the sake of the business, afraid that if Adrian found out, he'd break, and everything would collapse. Clara, meanwhile, lived in constant fear that Mark would eventually talk. So, at first she seduced him just to keep him quiet, but over time, the game turned into something real. Their bond grew into more than a secret affair. It became something much deeper. Clara and Mark take all the company's work with them and leave for America. There, a new team and fresh investment are already waiting. Adrian collapses to the floor, not from the financial ruin, but from betrayal. The one person he trusted more than anyone stole not only his business, but his love. And the woman he was ready to give everything for chose his best friend. That night, Adrian stands on the balcony of his rented apartment, staring down from the 30th floor. He thinks about ending it all. The debts weigh on him like a stone slab. There's no future, no faith in people left. But something stops him. Maybe stubbornness. Maybe the need to prove to everyone that they were wrong. The next 2 years turn into a fight for survival. Adrian works as a programmer in a small IT company, earning just $1,000 a month. He lives in a room the size of a closet. Every cent goes toward paying off his debts. But in his mind, a new plan is already taking shape. 2010 becomes the turning point. Adrian notices a trend everyone else is ignoring. Ecology is no longer a buzzword. It's becoming a real need. People are ready to pay for eco-friendly transport. But the options out there are either ugly, slow, or insanely expensive. Adrian spots the gap: premium electric scooters for the urban elite, stylish, fast, sustainable. He takes out one last loan and finds a small factory in China. The first batch of 50 scooters he assembles almost by hand. The design is revolutionary, clean Apple-like lines, but for transport. The scooters reach speeds of up to 50 miles per hour and can go 60 miles on a single charge. And most importantly, they look like works of art. The first sales blow past every expectation. In a month, Adrian sells out the entire batch. Buyers are lining up for the next model. At last, money starts flowing in the right direction. But that's just the beginning. By 2012, Adrian's company is producing 2,000 scooters a month. Each one sells for $20,000. Do the math. That's $40 million in monthly revenue, $15 million in profit. In just 2 years, the bankrupt outcast has become one of the richest men in Scandinavia. A mansion in the suburbs of Stockholm, a collection of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, a 40-meter yacht worth $50 million. Adrian buys back everything he once lost, and more. But what happens next is even more remarkable. The media discover Adrian Lindbergh as the new hero of business, a young entrepreneur who went through bankruptcy and rose again like a phoenix. The perfect story for magazine covers. Journalists line up for interviews. Adrian becomes the face of a new generation of millionaires. Eco-conscious, tech-driven, socially responsible. He graces the covers of major international magazines. He gives lectures at the world's top universities. Politicians and Hollywood stars quote him. On camera, he smiles with confidence, talks about the company's future, new projects, his personal philosophy of success. Photo shoots in the office, at home, on the yacht. Everywhere he looks like the Scandinavian version of the American dream. But what the cameras capture is only half the truth. At night, Adrian can't sleep. He's haunted by nightmares of Mark and Clara's betrayal. He wakes up in a cold sweat, staring at the ceiling for hours. Success doesn't erase the pain. Money doesn't heal broken trust. Adrian begins to shut down. His energy drains away. Doctors talk about burnout, but he doesn't listen. The company is growing. Projects keep multiplying. The money keeps flowing. Why stop now? In interviews, he talks about happiness and self-fulfillment. At home, he counts pills and plans the next project, just to escape his thoughts. To the public, he's a symbol of success. But inside that symbol lives a broken man, terrified of ever trusting again. August 2014. Adrian decides to celebrate the company's latest triumph with a grand cruise. The new scooter model has shattered all sales records. A $100 million contract with a European retail chain is signed. Time to celebrate. His yacht is prepared for a 2-week journey across the Atlantic. 12 people come aboard, business partners from Germany and France, top executives from his company, and a few models from an agency brought in to add glamour to the party. Everyone is happy, buzzing with anticipation of a luxurious escape. The first days feel like a dream. The crystal-clear waters of the Atlantic sparkle like diamonds in the sun. A private chef serves meals worthy of Michelin stars. Dom Perignon flows like water. Guests sunbathe on deck, play poker, dance under the stars. Adrian feels like the king of the world. Surrounded by beautiful people who admire his success, he tells business stories, cracks jokes, laughs. For the first time in years, he's truly relaxed. The nightmares have faded. It seems he's finally beaten his demons. Day 4 of the cruise. The party is in full swing. A jazz band plays on deck. Guests dance and snap photos against the backdrop of the sunset. Adrian raises a toast to life, to success, to friendship. Laughter and applause erupt. Nobody notices the dark clouds on the horizon. Around midnight, the captain receives an urgent weather alert. A storm has shifted course and is heading straight toward them. But everyone is drunk, relaxed, unworried. The decision is made to retreat to their cabins and wait it out. How bad could a storm be in August? Probably just a little rocking, nothing more. They couldn't be more wrong. At 3 in the morning, Adrian is jolted out of bed as if thrown into the air. The yacht is tossed like a matchstick in a whirlpool. Outside the porthole, only pitch-black darkness and the roar of the wind. He stumbles onto the deck and sees hell. Waves rise as high as a 20-story building. The wind howls with the force of a jet engine. The captain shouts into the radio, but the line is dead. The crew runs across the deck, trying to secure whatever they can. Guests cling to the railings in panic. A skyscraper-sized wave slams into the yacht, tearing down the first mast. Metal snaps like paper. Adrian watches in horror as one of his partners is swept overboard. The man disappears into the foaming blackness in seconds. Not even a scream can be heard over the roar of the storm. The yacht takes a breach in the hull. Water floods the engine room. One by one, the engines die. The power goes out. In total darkness, people scream, cry, pray. But the ocean doesn't hear prayers. Can you imagine that kind of force? A $50 million yacht torn apart like a toy. Adrian grabs a life jacket and fights his way toward the lifeboats. But they're already gone. The waves have swept everything off the deck. The last thing he remembers is a massive wave swallowing the yacht whole. The world flips upside down. Ice-cold water slams into his lungs. Darkness swallows everything. Adrian loses consciousness in the freezing grip of the Atlantic. What saves him is the life jacket and a small inflatable raft that someone managed to ready in the final minutes before disaster struck. The waves toss it around like a matchbox, but it's the only thing standing between him and the abyss. He remembers the screams, the chaos, the lightning splitting the sky, the cold water tearing at his chest, and then blackness. Waking up on the sand feels like being born again. Adrian lies on his back, unable to move. The blazing sun scorches his face, salt crusts his lips. In his ears, the surf pounds like the ocean itself is mocking him. For minutes, he can't grasp where he is. Slowly, the realization sinks in. He's alive. Somehow, against all odds, alive. Struggling to his feet, he looks around. Before him stretches a picture straight out of a travel ad. A thin strip of white sand, rows of coconut palms, gray cliffs behind them. But this isn't paradise. It's a trap. The island is tiny, no more than a mile long, barely half a mile wide. No buildings, no roads, no signs of people. Only the ocean stretching to the horizon. No ships in sight, no dots in the sky. Not even a passing plane. Absolute emptiness. And in that moment, reality hits him like a hammer. They're all gone. The 12 people he had been drinking champagne with just the day before now lie at the bottom of the Atlantic. Friends, partners, the women who laughed at his jokes, all swallowed by the whirlpool. Why him? Why did he survive? Was it blind chance? Or did the ocean spare him on purpose to deliver the cruelest punishment imaginable? A life of total isolation? The first hours pass in hysteria. Adrian runs along the shore, screaming until his voice tears apart, until his throat is raw and bleeding. He waves desperately at imaginary helicopters, lays out giant SOS letters in the sand with rocks until his fingers are covered in blisters. In his head, only one question repeats. Why can't anyone see me? Why isn't anyone coming? But the only reply is the call of seagulls and the endless rhythm of the waves. By evening, euphoria and hope die. A crushing realization takes over. No one knows where he is. The yacht went down thousands of miles from the nearest port. The search teams are surely sweeping a completely different part of the ocean. This island is too small to even show up on a chart. On the world map, it doesn't exist at all. When night falls, the situation turns into a nightmare. No walls, no roof, no fire, no light. Adrian is left face to face with darkness. He shivers as the sand cools beneath him and the wind cuts through to the bone. Every sound from the bushes feels like a threat. A snake, a wild animal, a spirit of the ocean. Faces of the dead flash in his mind. He sees them in the dark, calling him, reaching out from the depths. And for the first time in years, he cries. Tears stream down his face, mixing with seawater. He sobs like a child, realizing the ocean has stolen his past life, and there is no way back. On the second day, the real ordeal begins. The sun shows no mercy. His head pounds, his lips crack open. Thirst becomes torture, hunger twists his stomach into knots. Adrian understands. There won't be a rescue, not soon, maybe never. He's alone with nature, which has just revealed its merciless face. A terrifying thought forms in his mind. Maybe the world has already buried him. Newspapers will report the tragedy. His company will declare mourning, but no one will ever know he's still breathing here, among the sand and palms. He's become a ghost while still alive. The third day turns into a survival lesson no business school could ever teach. For the first time in his life, Adrian faces the truth. Money, connections, contracts, none of it matters. Out here, the only things that count are what you have in your hands and what you have in your head. The first and most urgent problem is water. There are no streams, no wells, not even damp soil on the island. Only the endless, salty ocean. After brief tropical showers, tiny puddles collect in the cracks of the rocks. Adrian learns to capture every drop. He rips off his shirt, shapes it into a funnel, and ties it between branches. Now every rainfall is a celebration, an event as precious as winning a fortune. Imagine this. A man who once paid $100 for designer bottled water is now on his knees, greedily licking droplets off leaves. But it works. He lives. He survives. Food becomes the second disaster. By the fourth day, his stomach cramps so badly from hunger, he nearly passes out. There are coconuts, but not many, and they hang far too high. Adrian spends hours wandering the beach, staring up at the palm trunks, each nut gleaming like gold. Climbing them is almost impossible. The smooth bark tears his hands, his feet slide back down. But he keeps getting up and trying, again and again. At last, his fingers grip the rough shell of a nut. He yanks it free, falls to the ground with his prize, and bursts out laughing like a madman. The white liquid inside is a miracle. The coconut milk burns his throat, but it saves him from death. Still, coconuts alone won't keep him alive. They run out quickly, and the body can't survive on them forever. In the lagoon, fish dart like flashes of silver, but catching them barehanded is impossible. Adrian tries, diving, lunging, clutching at slippery bodies, but each time they slip away. So, he decides to make a weapon. He finds a broken piece of mast, sharpens it against a rock, and lashes a pointed stick to the end. The result is a crude spear. His first attempts are pitiful. He falls face first into the water, the tip splashes against the surface, the fish vanish. But day after day, he keeps trying. His hands are raw, his knees scraped open. After a week, finally, success. He pierces a fish and drags it onto the shore, small, skinny. But it's a meal. From that moment, hunting becomes a ritual. Shelter, too, becomes a matter of life and death. The first nights he sleeps under the open sky, but rain and wind quickly teach him that won't last. The sea tosses wreckage onto the beach, life jackets, scraps of sailcloth. From it, he builds something between a hut and a cave, a frame of branches, a roof of fabric, walls of driftwood. Crooked, flimsy, but it holds. When the rain pours, Adrian sits inside, listening to the drops drum against the canvas. And for the first time, he feels safe. But the worst comes at night. When the work is done, the fire burns low, and sleep won't come, the visions creep in. Clara stands on the shore, alive, laughing, waving at him. Mark sits by the fire, shaking his head, his eyes filled with reproach. They talk to him, argue with him, accuse him. "You brought this on yourself," Clara says, her voice gentle but cold. "All you ever cared about was money." "We betrayed you, yes," Mark adds, "but you betrayed yourself first." He screams at them, runs through the darkness, but they don't disappear. Sometimes he argues for hours, desperately trying to prove something to people who aren't there. By the 6th month, Adrian is no longer the man he once was. His hair hangs to his shoulders, his beard down to his chest. His skin is scorched by the sun, covered in scars and scratches. His muscles are tough and wiry from endless labor. The millionaire is gone. What remains is a savage. But his survival skills are now razor sharp. He can catch fish any way he wants, with a spear, a trap, even his bare hands in the shallows. He can spark a fire in a minute using 2 stones. From the color of the sky, he knows when a storm is coming. From the smell of plants, he knows what's safe to eat and what's poison. His university now is nature itself, and his harshest teacher, hunger. On a hillside, he lays out massive letters in white stones. Help, each one the size of a car. He hopes that someday, a plane or even a satellite will see them. Every morning he climbs to the top and scans the sky. But there's nothing. Not a single trace of humanity. The first year fades into the second. Adrian stops counting days. It's pointless. Time flows differently here. There is only day and night, the rainy season and the dry season. Nothing else matters. He makes his cave into something like a home, builds furniture from driftwood, stacks stones into shelves, weaves fishing nets from plant fibers, creates an entire system for collecting rainwater, troughs, channels, barrels carved from tree trunks. Slowly, the island becomes his fortress. But his mind begins to crack. The visions no longer wait for night. By day, he talks to coconuts, giving them the names of his dead friends. He sits with a parrot and debates business strategies. He gives lectures to crabs about ecology and sustainability. More and more, he slips into this absurd world where only he decides what's real and what's not. The 3rd year of solitude. Adrian no longer remembers the taste of bread. He can't recall the smell of coffee, fresh meat, or even a simple bowl of soup. In his world, there is no food touched by human hands. All he knows now is fish, coconuts, the occasional fruit. His stomach has grown used to constant hunger. He can't remember the sound of another human voice, only his own. Sometimes he tries to speak in full sentences, but they sound strange, foreign. His own voice feels like it belongs to someone else. He catches himself wondering if he's even forming words correctly anymore. His memory betrays him. He tries to recall his mother's face, but all that comes is fog. Her smile, her eyes, even her voice are gone. His former life feels like a dream, distant, unreal. There's no mirror on the island, but in the murky water of the lagoon, he sees his reflection, and it terrifies him. This is not Adrian Lindbergh, the successful entrepreneur. This is a wild creature, long, tangled hair, a beard down to his chest, a body wasted to the bone, eyes crazed, filled with hunger and despair. A man who has long since forgotten what civilization means. The 4th year becomes critical. Adrian notices he's forgetting words. He talks to himself, but more often he stays silent. His vocabulary shrinks to the bare essentials: food, water, fire, danger. Everything else falls away like useless ballast. His thoughts grow simple. Animal. He stops maintaining the help sign. Once, the giant white letters stood bright on the hillside. Now the stones have been scattered by wind, by grass, by time. He has neither the strength nor the will to rebuild them. Inside him grows a cold certainty. No one will come. No planes, no ships. This island isn't a refuge. It's his grave. At night he lies in his cave, staring into the darkness. Sometimes he thinks about the simple way out, walking into the ocean and not stopping until his strength is gone. The water would take him, just as it took the 12 others who died with the yacht. It would be easier than waiting, but every morning the sun drags him to his feet again. His stomach demands food, his throat demands water, and he goes searching once more. The animal inside him is stronger than the man. December of the 4th year. The ocean is calm, the sky is filled with stars. Adrian sits by the fire, barely moving. He doesn't speak anymore, hardly even thinks. He exists like an animal, eating, sleeping, hunting. The man inside him is almost gone, and then, on the horizon, a light. At first he thinks it's another hallucination, one of the many that tormented him through the nights. But no, the light moves. It grows brighter. It's a ship. His heart pounds so violently it feels like it might burst out of his chest. Adrian jumps up, grabs anything that will burn, and throws it into the fire. Branches, leaves, scraps of cloth, even pieces of wood from his shelter. Flames leap into the sky. He screams until his voice shreds, knowing full well no one could hear him from such a distance. But it doesn't matter. All that matters is not losing this chance. The cargo ship Baltic Star is en route from Norway to Brazil. A sailor on watch notices a strange, unusually bright fire on a tiny island. By maritime law, every distress signal must be checked. The ship changes course. By early morning, a lifeboat reaches the shore. The sailors see a wild man, half naked, burned by the sun, emaciated. He's laughing and crying at the same time, rocking back and forth. He tries to speak, but no words form, only broken, raspy sounds. The captain understands immediately. A shipwreck survivor. But for how long? From the look of him, far too long. 4 years of hell, 4 years of isolation, and salvation arrives at the very moment Adrian was preparing to die. A week later, the ship docks in Bergen. The news of Adrian Lindbergh's rescue spreads across the world faster than any headline. The millionaire thought dead for 4 years is alive. Europe and America erupt. Newspapers scream of a modern Robinson. TV channels replay his story around the clock. Journalists swarm him in the hospital. Cameras snap without pause. Recorders capture every syllable. Everyone wants to know one thing. How did he survive? What did he eat? How did he not lose his mind? But Adrian hardly speaks. After years of silence, words are heavy. Every sentence sounds as if it has to be pulled out of him with force. Doctors diagnose exhaustion, burns, and post-traumatic stress. His body recovers quickly. Food, vitamins, and medicine do their work. But his soul takes a different path. Adrian flinches at loud noises, gets lost in crowds, suffocates in closed rooms. He's used to open skies, to wind and ocean. And now he can't sleep in a sterile hospital bed. Then comes news he can hardly believe. His business is alive. More than that, it's thriving. The managers he left behind before the fateful cruise not only kept production running, they tripled it. His electric scooters have taken over the world. Europe, Asia, America. People buy Lindbergh's technology as if he never disappeared. The company is valued at $2 billion. The irony is cruel. While he was spearing fish and drinking rainwater off leaves, his name was becoming a brand. While he crawled through sand, his fortune was growing in the banks. The world kept moving forward without him. But money no longer holds any power. He looks at the bank accounts like lines from a computer game, numbers that mean nothing. On the island, he had everything: water, food, shelter, the sun. Everything else turned out to be an illusion. The first months after his rescue become a new kind of trial. The noise of the city crushes him. The abundance of food in stores feels absurd. Why 30 kinds of bread when one is enough? People rush, argue, shout, and Adrian can't understand what any of it is for. He sells the mansion, gives away his collection of cars, swears off yachts forever. The ocean has claimed too many lives. Instead of a penthouse, he chooses a modest house on the edge of Stockholm with a view of the forest and the lake. In a rare interview, he says a line that instantly becomes iconic. "The island gave me what money never could: silence, simplicity, and the understanding of what really matters." But the deepest truth he keeps to himself. He never speaks of the nightly visions of Clara and Mark, of the arguments with their ghosts in the dark, of the moment he finally forgave them, and how only then was he able to survive. That inner work was harder than hunting fish or fighting hunger. The company remains his, but its mission changes. Now, part of the profits go toward programs that help shipwreck survivors, research remote islands, and develop new rescue equipment. At last, money has a purpose. He no longer gives business interviews, no longer appears on magazine covers, no longer buys status symbols. He lives simply, wakes up at dawn, works with his hands, walks through the forest. Each day is a small victory. Sometimes he returns to the ocean, sits on the shore for hours, staring at the waves, remembering the 4 years that changed him more than the 40 that came before. The island stripped him of wealth, comfort, and his old life, but gave him something priceless in return: knowledge of himself. The story of Adrian Lindberg becomes legend, a reminder to the world that the greatest trials come when it seems you already have everything. Success can blind you. Wealth can deceive you. True strength is revealed not in triumph, but in collapse. Somewhere in the Atlantic, there's still a small, nameless island. On its hillside, white stones once spelled the word help. Wind and time have scattered them across the beach. The message is gone, but the memory of the 4 years spent there remains. Adrian Lindberg is no longer a millionaire chasing billions. He's simply a man who knows the value of each day, and that, it turns out, is enough to be happy. That's it for today. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Your feedback means a lot right now. Tell me in the comments what you think of this story. Do you see Adrian Lindberg as a hero who walked through hell and came out changed, or as a victim of his own mistakes? I read every comment and try to respond to all of them. And don't forget to hit the like button. It's the best way to support the channel and show that stories like this matter to you. The more likes, the more people will discover them. And of course, make sure to subscribe. There are plenty of new stories ahead that we'll be working on together.